BBC Sussex.
25 minutes to midday. Sir Norman Wisdom has died on the Isle of Man at the age of 95. Your memories of Sir Norman on 08459 570057. I used to love those movies because they were great, harmless fun, knockabout stuff, and you can't fail, no matter how old a kid you are, you can't fail to find that kind of stuff funny. Pete from Solihull in the West Midlands, who used to work down here, didn't you, Pete?
That's right, Danny. Good morning to you. I used to work in Southampton BBC, which was the only BBC available 40 years ago in that part of the world.
We've expanded a little bit to Sussex and Surrey. Indeed. Since then. So your memories of, what was this, working with Norman?
Yes, I was an engineer at the BBC in Southampton at the time, in the mid-60s, and he'd just been in 1964, as I think you probably heard earlier, of course, made a director of Brighton and Hove Albion, and he was determined to use his personality, shall we say, to get on the pitch at home games and wind the crowd up in his own inimitable style. And as part of this act, he wanted to use a very old musical song called Sussex by the Sea. And he asked if he could bring this into the studio and have it edited in a particular way, because I think the local BBC South Today wanted to film him doing this on the first occasion. And I think as part of the deal, he said, OK, you can come if I can edit my tape at your studio. So he came in with this record, and I just happened to be the duty engineer on at the time. And we recorded this song, and then he wanted it chopped up. I don't know whether you know, but in those days, hundreds of years ago... Yeah,
I'm old enough to remember tape. Yeah, I remember that.
And Norman, a lovely man, he came into the studio and just sat there quietly while I recorded the disc onto a tape, and then he just gave me instructions on how he wanted it, because he wanted the chorus to come up more often than it did, you know. And he wasn't a bit phased, but the thing that struck me, to be honest, Danny, was the fact that he didn't do all this leaping about and Mr. Grimsdale and all that business. He just sat there in a lovely, humorous way and just told me what he wanted and responded beautifully with a big smile and well done, laddie, when I'd done it, you know?
So that was 46 years ago.
It's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole of my lifetime and a bit ago. But he was also, a massive star then as well. So you might have expected him to have an entourage and to be a bit where,
Indeed. Although in those days you quite often would find stars coming into studios with only one person with them. They didn't have an entourage. I mean, there wasn't the security thing, and there wasn't the sort of press problem that they get now when they become very famous.
Yeah.
I mean, he just turned up in a taxi on his own at the studio and wandered up the stairs to the studio.
Wow, so that was it. So you edited the version of Sussex by the Sea that he then would perform on the pitch at the Goldstone for the fans before the game to hype him up.
What he eventually seems to have done, Danny, is that he rewrote some of the words to incorporate the name Brighton and Hove and Sussex, so he could wind them up. I've been trying to search out the words, but they're lost in the mist of antiquity. I bet there's a Brighton fan down there got the actual words.
I bet there's somebody with a copy of the recording or something. Somebody must have recorded it at the ground. But,
yes, indeed.
So
yes.
Which came first? Was it the Sussex by the Sea being the Brighton Hove Albion anthem first, or did they adopt it after he did it? I don't know the chronology.
No, I think he had the idea of using it on the pitch.
Because they still use it now.
He wrote the new words for the anthem, for the ground anthem, and from his starting with this recording, it grew and grew and grew, and now, of course, it's the acceptable song. I assume it still is. I mean, I've moved from the area now.
They sure still play Sussex by the Sea there. I'll ask an Albion fan to put all those pieces together for us, but great to talk to you today, Pete. Thank you very much.
Nice to talk to you, Danny. Bye.
Great to speak to you. There goes Pete from Solihull here on BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey. Yeah, these days at the Albion they have cheerleaders and everything. Back in the day, Norman Wisdom singing Sussex by the Sea. That's quality.